Love the high-end Pottery Barn look but not the price tag? You're in the right place. Today I've put together an amazing collection of my favorite DIY Pottery Barn home decor dupes, giving you that high-end look for way less. From stunning vases to designer-inspired furniture pieces, these budget-friendly DIYs will elevate your home without breaking the bank. This is another mega marathon packed with tons of DIY inspiration, so grab a cozy drink, get comfortable, and let's dive into these elegant high-end home decor projects. And if you love saving money while creating beautiful home decor, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new DIY. And let me know in the comments which Pottery Barn dupe is your favorite. The first DIY is inspired by the Pottery Barn textured earthenware vase, which retails for a whopping $99, but we're making our own for just a few dollars. I'm starting with a thrifted vase that has a great shape but definitely needs a makeover. To achieve that high-end textured look, I am applying drywall compound all over the vase using a putty knife. This is a trick I use often because it creates a beautiful organic texture that mimics expensive earthware. If you don't have drywall compound, you can also use baking soda mixed with paint for a similar effect, or even plaster of Paris mixed into a fairly thick texture. While I'm applying the drywall compound, I wanted to mention that this video is extra special because I'm collaborating with my best friend Sandra from DIYs at the Schwalmen's Nest. Sandra and I have been friends for over 24 years and used to even live on the same street. We have been DIYing together for years and I love her creativity. She's also sharing some amazing DIYs today, so be sure to check out her video after this one. I will have her channel and video linked down in the description box. And if it's your first time stopping by from her channel, hello and welcome. And if you're visiting her channel for the first time from my channel, make sure to say hello to her and let her know Sonia sent you. Moving on to the vase, once the drywall compound was applied, I did not wait for it to dry before creating the lines. I used a comb to make the lines evenly distributed, referencing my inspiration piece as a guide. This process was very therapeutic and I really enjoyed it. Once it dried for about 24 hours, I sanded down any rough peaks using sandpaper from Dollar Tree. The final result turned out stunning, and I think it's a very close match to the Pottery Barn inspiration piece for just a fraction of the price. You can customize this however you like. You can leave it as is, like I am doing, or paint it with a creamy white, a deep terracotta, or even a soft gray to match your decor. The end result is a high-end looking vase that you would never guess was a thrift store find. Moving on to my next DIY, we're going to transform this flower pot or planter that I picked up at Dollarama for just $1.75. I was immediately drawn to the little braided design because I knew it would be perfect for mimicking the look of wicker or rattan, which is incredibly popular right now. As you can see, similar pieces can be quite pricey online. To achieve that high-end look, I use dark antiquing wax. I'm using any Sloan, but any brand will work. I simply applied it with a brush, making sure to work into all the grooves to enhance the texture. This was such a simple and easy DIY, but the result is absolutely beautiful. It's the perfect way to add warmth and texture to your space, and I think it truly gives that rattan or wicker effect. What do you guys think? West Elm, which is a sister company to Pottery Barn under Williams Sonoma, sell these adorable bunny statues, and I fell in love with them. The middle-sized bunny retails for $68, but we're making ours for just a few dollars. I picked up this wood bunny from Dollarama for $3 and decided to customize it to achieve that similar high-end look. I experimented with different stains, special walnut and old American, and settled on using my gel stain, which was a bit dry but still usable. The wooden bunny absorbed a lot of stain I was applying with the rag and making some areas darker than I wanted. So I proceeded on dabbing some of that stain off and then rubbing it onto the bunny for the lesser stain effect. So after the bunny was done, I was still a little bit unhappy with how dark some of the areas were. So to fix this, I applied some white wax to lighten it up. Although the final result wasn't exactly what I had envisioned, I think it has a beautiful vintage feel and I might go and grab another bunny to experiment further. This is another easy dupe and is such an easy way to bring in some subtle seasonal decor. Wicker rattan and woven decor pieces are some of my favorite things to look for at thrift stores because they're so much more affordable than buying new. Most high-end stores charge a fortune for these, but thrift stores usually have a great selection. If you don't love the original color, don't worry, you can easily update it with gel stain, watered down paint, chalk paint, or even wax. For my piece, I'm using a combination of dark wax and white wax to deepen the tone while still letting the natural woven texture shine through. So the next piece that I'm working on is this thrifted tray, which I got for just $2.99. It was the perfect shape and I loved the design, but the color was a little too yellow for my taste. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but I wanted to give it a slightly different look. I recently picked up this rattan style bunny from HomeSense and I love the warm natural tone of it. This was the color I wanted to replicate on the tray. To achieve that look, I mixed white wax with dark antiquing wax and applied it to the tray. I think it really helped to tone down the yellow, and the final result was pretty close to the color of the bunny. Like I said, trays like these can be so expensive in stores, so I always keep an eye out for them at thrift stores. This one was actually picked up for me by Sandra. She was out thrifting, sending me pictures, and I grabbed it for me. Sometimes having a personal shopper really comes in handy, and I'm so grateful for Sandra. One thing to note about using wax, it does take some time to cure. Right after applying it, the tray felt a little sticky, and the more I handled it, the more wax rubbed off. But after about 24 hours, it was completely fine. I used the rag to wipe off some of the excess wax and then reapplied a little bit more in certain areas to get that perfect finish. This is such a great way to incorporate warmth and natural elements into your decor, and the best part is that not two pieces are ever the same. This last DIY is a dupe of the extra large fall olive stem from Crate and Barrel, which retails for $89. I love the look of these oversized olive stems, but I definitely don't love the price. To make my own, I wanted to include it here because we are going to recreate it just for $10. I picked up olive branches from Temu for $10 for 5 stems. Each branch had multiple smaller branches, so I split them in half. Using real branch from my yard, I had glued the olive stems onto them, following the natural curvature to make it look realistic. And don't worry, cutting off a branch from a bush or a tree in your yard does not kill that plant. Any longer branches were trimmed down. This is such a great statement piece in a vase, and I love how high-end it looks for a fraction of the price. If you missed my eucalyptus tree DIY, which was a crate and barrel dupe, I will link it into the corner for you to check out. For under $10, I now have a beautiful statement piece that looks just as good as the high-end version. This is such an easy way to elevate your floral arrangements and add a timeless touch to your decor. First project, I'm starting with a planter transformation. I picked up a pre-mixed can of beige brown paint at a discount because it was a mist tint, such a great way to find high quality paint for cheap. I also found a planter with an attached saucer at the thrift store, which became the perfect base for this DIY. Inspired by Pottery Barn's small decorative pots, I wanted to add texture and character to make it look like an aged clay or a stone planter. To achieve this, I mixed plaster of Paris into my paint and applied 2 coats for depth and texture. I love how the brushstrokes soften the look while adding dimension. I plan to use this for fresh basil since I cook with it multiple times a week. Since I also painted the inside, I'll keep the plant in its original container for food safety. If you try this, you can also use terracotta pots and paint them along with their saucers. This DIY proves you don't have to spend a lot to get the high-end look you love. And here it is. I just added a faux plant to it because I did forget to pick up the basil when I went to the grocery store. So you'll just have to check it out on my home channel to see how it looks with basil if you want to see that. For the last project, I transformed a thrifted wooden shelf that my friend found for me for $7.99. It was the perfect size, but I wanted it to match my kitchen island. I ended up sanding off some of the finish, just a clear coat. I wasn't aiming for perfection since I was going to be painting it anyway. I just wanted to rough it up a little bit. I used a hand sander with 220 grit sandpaper that had been used several times, so it wasn't too aggressive, but it still did the job I needed. There are many places where you can find small shelves at different price points. I even found one similar to mine but larger on Etsy for a lot more than what I paid. If you're looking for a piece, just be patient. The right one is out there and you just need to find it. Once everything was sanded down, I brought it inside and used the same paper that I picked up at Dollar Tree uh, to get in all the little nooks and crannies that the sander couldn't reach, especially underneath the small hanging parts. This step took a little longer since it was difficult to get in all the tight spaces by hand. Once I was done, I wiped everything down with a damp paper towel. Once prepped, I mixed up my beige brown paint. To prevent yellowing, I followed a trick I've seen in other DIY videos, adding a tiny bit of blue paint to balance out warm tones. I applied the paint with the sponge brush, wiping off excess with the lint-free rag to create a soft, natural finish. I worked by sections so that way the paint did not dry on me. If it happens that you are working on a larger section, just make sure you have a bottle of spray bottle with some water in it so you can keep your paint dry, wet. Once I completed that and the shelf dried, which didn't take long at all, I took some of my Annie Sloan antiquing wax in dark and applied it with a brush. The brush I used was similar to stippling brush, and I worked in very small amounts at a time, brushing it out as I went. This darkened the paint slightly and really brought out all the grooves and wood grain, which I love. After applying the wax with the brush, I buffed it out slightly with the rag. You don't need to fully buff the antiquing wax, you can simply wipe off the excess. In my case, I wouldn't say I buffed it out completely, but I did make sure to wipe it well after applying it with the brush to even everything out. Initially, it looked slightly greenish, but as it dried, it settled into a warm, rich tone that matched my island perfectly. Here is how the shelf looks now, and you can see some of the pieces I already added to it. I think it turned out absolutely beautiful and matches my island perfectly, just the way I envisioned it. It's a great addition to this little space, which had been sitting empty and was really bothering me. Now, not only does it add a decorative touch, but it also brings in some functionality. This corner gets a lot of beautiful morning sunlight, so I thought it would be the perfect spot for a little herb garden. Here is how I styled it for now. I added my DIY flower pot with some fall herbs until I get fresh ones, my DIY picture frame with the DIY bunny from last week, and a little hanging basket with garlic. The basket came from Temu. And I also included a simple kitchen dish towel along with the watering can. Our first project is a Pottery Barn-inspired forsythia wreath. This bright and cheerful piece is perfect for spring, bringing a pop of yellow to your front door or interior decor. Instead of paying retail prices, I'm going to show you how to make a stunning version using affordable materials. The materials that I needed for this was the bunny wreath form from Dollarama, which I picked up for $5. Also, forsythia stems, they are currently at Dollarama for $1.75. I had some from previous years. You're going to need some wire cutters, hot glue and glue sticks, floral wire, which is optional for extra support. So first, this wreath form was actually wrapped in a wire, and which I hadn't realized when I first bought it. To separate it, I used wire cutters to carefully snip away extra wire and remove the bunny shape, leaving just the circular base. I had a mix of older and newer forsythia stem, and I noticed that the newer ones had slightly larger flowers and were more open. I will show you that in just a little bit. I cut the long stems down into smaller branch-like pieces to create a fuller, more natural look. I started by attaching two longer forsythia stems to the wreath base first and secure them with a small piece of cut wire and a bit of hot glue. This created a strong foundation. Then one by one, I inserted the smaller forsythia branches into the frame, making sure to distribute them evenly around the wreath. Some pieces stayed in place on their own, while others needed a dab of hot glue to ensure they were secure. Here is the difference between the new forsythia and the old one. I checked for any sparse areas and filled them in with extra stems. Once finished, I hung it up on my home sign at the front door, and I absolutely love how it brightens up the space. My DIY cost around $8 in total, and compared to Pottery Barn's $41 price tag. Next, we're making a vase inspired by McGee & Co.'s Loeffler Randall Tabitha vase, which retails around $62. I found a similar shaped vase at Dollarama for just $3, and we're going to give the designer look with paint. So for this, you will need a glass vase. Like I said, I picked up mine for $3 at Dollarama. I also used suede paint in olive by Decor, a little bit of plaster, which I will show you what I'm using it for at the end, and of course you're going to need a paintbrush, and that's it. So since glass is smooth and doesn't absorb paint well, I applied 2 full coats of this Decor suede paint. This paint has a slightly grainy texture which helps mimic the subtle texture of the McGee & Co. vase. I did wait fully between the coats for it to dry fully in between the coats. And for the third coat, I mixed a tiny amount of plaster into the paint. This helped thicken it and provided a full coverage, ensuring no light would shine through the vase. I avoided painting the entire inside, but did coat the rim for a finished look. Once dried, the vase had the perfect smooth yet textured finish, very similar to the high-end version. My final cost was under $4 compared to $62 retail. Next, for our third DIY, we are making high-end speckled egg Easter eggs inspired by McGee & Co. Their set of 3 eggs costs $28, but I'll show you how to make them for less than 5. I picked up these plastic eggs at Dollarama for $3.50, and I also got some chalk paint in sea blue, ice cappuccino, and moss green, and I also have an acrylic paint in black, and you will need paintbrush, and you can also use a toothbrush if you would like. So I painted each egg with a different color. First, I started with a speckled effect, and to achieve that signature speckled look, I dipped a brush, and this is the part where you can use an old toothbrush, into black paint and slightly flicked it over the eggs. Be careful, paint splatter can go everywhere. Then I painted my next one with the sea blue chalk paint, making sure that the brush strokes are visible to mimic the effect on the eggs from McGee & Co. The third egg I painted a nice cappuccino using the same technique. And then the last egg, I mixed my sea blue with a little bit of moss green and a little bit of black for a custom paint color. I love how these turned out. They are quite large eggs, and I can't wait to style them in my Easter decor. For our last project, we're making a concrete style bunny inspired by Pottery Barn's cast stone rabbit, which retails for over $50. I picked up this Dollarama rabbit for $3.75. I'm also going to use black and white acrylic paint, some antiquing wax, and a little bit of olive green suede paint that we used in our first project, and then a paintbrush and a rag. Since I didn't have gray paint, I mixed black and white acrylic until I achieved the right shade of gray. I painted the whole rabbit, making sure I got into all the little nooks and crannies of the rabbit. The eyes on this rabbit always freak me out a little bit, so I like to cover them as well. Once I painted it, I did take a rag and just dabbed it all over just to um, almost blend the paint in a little bit. Did take the paint off the eyes, so I did have to touch them up. Once the bunny completely dried, I mixed white antiquing wax with a bit of that olive green color to create a mossy patina. I lightly brushed it all over the bunny, making sure it settled into the crevices. Then I took another brush and blended the wax to ensure a natural look. And the total cost of mine was around $5 compared to Pottery Barn's over 50, I think it was $69. And I also just want to give you a little tip. If you're shopping at Dollarama, make sure you check your bunny prices, because there were, when I was looking at them, I picked up two same rabbits, and one was priced at $3.50 and the other one was priced at $5. I have a feeling that one was from last year's stock, and then the other one was this year's stock, so the prices must have gone up, but they had forgot to switch the price tags. So make sure you check your prices, because there's no reason to pay more if you don't have to. I love how this bunny turned out. I think he looks absolutely adorable. Obviously, I'm not going to be using mine in the garden, but he will look just fabulous on my shelf or on my coffee table. If you want some great looking linens, Pottery Barn is a place for you, especially the table linens. I was browsing and I came across some of these fringed table linens, and I thought they looked really nice, right up my alley, the way I want my style to go. So I had seen some napkins, but I also saw this frayed linen table throw, which is just a throw to go over your table. It's not necessarily a full tablecloth, and it had a really nice fringed edge to it, and I loved the color choices, especially this one. And but I did not love the $141 price tag that this throw came at. So after a little bit of brainstorming, I did find this canvas cloth in my stash. It did come from Dollarama. It was $4. So I had trimmed it to a size that would fit my table. And then it was kind of sewn together at the end. So I just wanted to cut that finished piece off. And then I went ahead and just pulled the string off of it, or the thread, until I reached that fringed look that the cloth had. You can go as much as you want to, or as little. Mine was about 1/2 inch of a fringe that I had left on the end. So as I'm fringing this cloth, I just want to say hello, welcome. My name is Sonia. Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you're returning. And I'm super excited about today's video because I absolutely love all the dupes that I did. So I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. So here it is, and I think it's very close to the inspiration. And now moving on to the next one, I wanted to get some placemats. Now I used to have these green ones that I picked up at Dollarama for $1.50, but I'm not sure if I threw them out or if I just can't find them because it seems to be a repeated thing that I can't find things in my house, but they were very much the same style of these. So I still wanted to show you because I will, even if I can't find them, I will go purchase these, but I still wanted to show you how easy it is to redo them if you don't have them in the right color. Like mine were really bright blue, and I no longer want that color, so I wanted to change them up into black. So I did find these, so I took them into my garage and then used this spray paint. Almost had a meltdown because I could not open it. It has a child-proof lid, and apparently I'm a child who cannot open it. So I gave it a nice generous coat, let it completely dry, and it's okay to use it because you're not putting food directly on it, you're putting plates on it, so you can use the spray paint and spray paint it really in any color that you want. I just did it in black, and I think this turned out really nice. It is a matte black, even though it looks shiny here, and I think the contrast between the plate color and the tablecloth color is great. And I thought for about $1.50, not so bad. A set of 4 would cost me around $8 versus $57 that it was on the Pottery Barn's website. Now moving on to another inspiration, going back to the fringed linen, they had these napkins, and I thought they were great. Again, set of 4 in the color that I really liked. They were $68. A little steep for napkins that most likely might end up getting stained so bad that you are going to have to toss them after several reuses anyways. So I went ahead with that same material that I had, and from, just to refresh your memory, from the Dollarama, I cut a piece off of it to about the size of that I thought a napkin size would be. You could take an actual napkin and put it up against and measure it out. I just eyeballed it, and then again it had that double end, so cut that off because you can't fringe that. And then I went ahead and started fringing it, and to me it's such a satisfying process to pull the string out. So with the whole piece of fabric that I picked up at Dollarama for $4, I did have it on hand, but I'm still gonna count it as paying $4 plus tax for it. I was able to make 1 tablecloth and about 5 napkins. So not bad at all for $4, whereas it would have cost me well over $150 for the table runner and napkins, 4 napkins. So here it is. I absolutely love it and so very close to the original inspiration. So moving on, for my next one, I wanted to complete the setting look. So I went ahead and started looking for some napkin rings and came across this one, and I thought perfect because I knew just the perfect piece that I already had on hand that I was going to toss. So it was free, whereas a set of 4 is $42, and it is this belt. So I just cut the size of a ring. You could use, if you have some napkin rings laying around, as a guide. I just again eyeballed it to what I thought the ring size should be, trimmed it to that size, and then I went ahead and cut it and then use hot glue to attach the pieces. You can go an extra mile and add another layer across the hot glue, so that way you don't see the hot glue. I don't think you'll see the hot glue anyways, because once you slide the napkins in, nobody's gonna see where it's joined. I thought this was such an easy DIY, and you can literally make it with any belt. You can thrift belts and just make them, there's some nice colored belts too that you could use for like spring or even Valentine's. You can find bright green, bright yellow, pink, red belts, all sorts of different belts, and they would act great as napkin rings. So I thought this was, like I said, such an easy, inexpensive DIY, and I think it looks absolutely fabulous in the table setting that I've kind of started to put together. Now, to elevate the look of your table setting, you need some lighting or some candles or candelabras, and my goodness, this Pottery Barn have lots of it. Lots of different shapes, styles, looks, different materials that it's made out of. I did, however, settle on this hurricane candle holder with gold accents, simply because I thought, what a great way to use some of my leftover lids from all the Bath and Body Works candles, because I have been saving all those lids, and I thought that turned out that would work really good for the base of the this candle holder. Now, as you saw, the price of the small was $59 and a large one was $134. Mine was kind of in between, as I am using the little vase, the glass vase that you can purchase at Dollar Tree or Dollarama for $1.50, and then I'm going to use some spun gold paint, and I also used antique gold paint as well, just to kind of mix them all up. I was originally going to try and figure out a matching color to the lid, the lip of the lid, but ended up thinking that it was much easier to just paint the lid to match the gold that I was going for. You could also, which I would strongly advise you to use, some painter's tape just to get a straight, clean line. My husband took my painter's tape and I no longer had it, so I just used freehand, but I strongly recommend using painter's tape. And the nice thing about this, you can make your top gold part as thick or as thin as you want. I did go a little bit thicker than the original inspiration, just because I liked it a little bit better that way. So once I had painted the top, I had glued the bottom to the lid, and I did leave the rubber part of the lid on because the glass wedged right in the middle of it. So I thought that was pretty a good way to keep it in place. And then I decided that it did need a second coat of the on the top again, just to smooth it out. So I proceeded on painting the top, and then I also painted the bottom as well, just to match the colors. I added a battery operated candle. Now I would probably use a little bit shorter one, but I just wanted to show you what that would look like. So for my last project, Pottery Barn is a great place to get inspiration for all your flower holders, your jugs, your vases, your pots, any sort of thing like that. They have so many different ones to choose from different colors, different techniques that they use to finish them. So I really like the look of the first one that I just shared, and I knew I had a vase that was similar to that. It was an actual wine bottle from before, but I was trying to figure out how I wanted to finish it, what finish I wanted to add to it. And there were, like I said, so many different ones to choose from. So this is the shape that I liked, but then I, like I said, was trying to figure out which look did I want to go with, and I did end up finding one at the end, and this is the one that I liked. I liked it because it was a little bit darker, still very much the same look, but just a touch darker. So if you've been a follower for a long time, you might have came across this DIY that I did, where I painted the bottle white, added some jute rope on top, and then I had some writing at the front of the bottle. I haven't used this in my decor for about last 2 years, so I decided it's time to upcycle it again. So I took the jute rope off. It took a little bit of elbow grease to get it off. So I got most of it off, and then I was going to come back to it because I needed to burn it. I wanted to burn the rope, but I had daycare kids who were napping, and I did not want to set the jug on fire just in case, because that would be a really tough one to explain to the fire department and the ministry. So I just went ahead and painted it. I wanted to add a little bit of creamier color to just some areas, and so I'm using old ochre from any Sloan chalk paint and just randomly adding it into random spots wherever it was a little bit chipped, the paint was chipped and the glass was showing. I covered that areas, just no rhyme and reason. And then I went ahead and got some dirt. Now it is winter here. All the dirt is very wet, especially even the one in the garage. So it would probably work a little bit better if the dirt was a little bit drier. I probably should have taken it out earlier, but nevertheless, I still achieved the look that I was going for. So I brushed it all over the wet paint. So you can see it's just sticking to the wet paint. And then I went ahead and rubbed it off with my hand and just tried rubbing it in, but then decided that it was probably better if I just took a towel and just rubbed it in as much as I could. And this gave it a really neat look. I wasn't crazy about the lines, but I knew I was going to do some more paint blending, so I wasn't too worried about it. So because I was wiping this off, there was no drying time in between the coats of paint that I went ahead and added. So the next one is called, it's just acrylic paint, and it's called Ivory Cream. And I just dipped my rag into the paint and then just rubbed it in, which this in turn made the other paint kind of brought it back to wetness, and it was just blending everything together. And this did help with all those lines and just smoothing the lines out. So I continued to do this through the whole piece, just in some areas adding a little bit more, in some areas adding a little bit less. And you can see where there wasn't any dirt paint on, it was lighter, which is what I was trying to achieve, just different tones throughout the bottle. Once I was happy with all the blending, I let the whole jug dry. And then when I came back to it, I did end up burning the stuff off, but for some reason the camera did not turn on. But this is not what the tutorial is about anyways. And I went ahead and painted with that old ochre just the top of the bottle in some areas. However, because I was holding it and I was trying to do the bottom part, I did rub some of the paint off, so I end up coming back to it again in a little bit. The next step, as you saw, I took some of that old ochre and dipped my paintbrush into it, and then dipped the paintbrush directly into the water and applied it in random spots and then wiped it down. This just softened up any darker spots. If they were too dark and I didn't love them, it just softened that up a little bit. If you had white antiquing glaze, you could also do that with that. It would kind of give you pretty much the same look. So I did go a little bit heavier with the paint here and a little less water on this area, just to give it different tones. When you look at aged vases and things like that, antique vases, they do have a lot of different tones because they have been, exposed to different sides. Different sides were exposed to the sun, so it makes things fade differently. And now for the top, I just took some of that dirt and added it to my ivory cream paint, and then just painted that on the top, and then I just also blended it a little bit right around the top edge. Now at this point you could stop here, but I did want to go a little tiny bit further, and I got my crafting sponge and ended up sponging it on, and just to add a little bit of texture to the piece. So I took some of that old ochre, put it on the lid, and then I wetted my sponge and just ran random areas with it. And then to finish it, I just dabbed the towel on it a little bit, smoothed out any edges that were created. There weren't that many with the sponge, and I absolutely love the way this turned out, and I do love it with the flowers, which I just added. And I think the little bumpy top kind of adds extra character to the vase. So the next project, I'm going to be making some Easter eggs. I love these moss eggs that I saw at Pottery Barn, but they are 19 for set of 6, which isn't overly pricey, but I had all of the supplies on hand, so I figured I will recreate. I did make only 3 of them, but a package of eggs at Dollar Tree cost me $1.50, and the moss was free because I had it on hand. But you can totally get a package at Dollarama and Dollar Tree, depending on which one you're looking for, from anywhere from $1.50 to $3. And you are not going to use the whole package, even on the 6 eggs. Well, you might, for 6 eggs, you might use a whole package. So I glued these together, and then I ended up doing 2 different ones because I had 2 different styles of moss, and I just wanted to see how the 2 different mosses will look on the eggs. This is very hard to do without burning yourself, so if you have some protective covers and you can handle wearing gloves while you do this, I highly recommend it. Otherwise, be prepared, you will burn your fingers. So I believe the first moss that I'm going to be working with is called a deer moss, and I was just trying to scrape off a little bit of the dirt from behind it, just so it's a little bit thinner, not as thick. You don't have to do this. Your eggs will be much larger than once they are finished, which is okay. And then once I had all this moss on there and it was nicely pressed in, and I gave the egg a little haircut just to kind of loosen up some of the flyaways that were on top of the egg. Now then I proceeded on putting this type of moss. I'm not sure what this one's called, and I wasn't an overly huge fan of this one. I thought the other one worked a little bit better, but I thought I'd show you both, and you decide which one you would like to use if you decide to recreate this project. I think these eggs will go really well with my decor, as is very earthy and natural decor that I use in my house. If you haven't seen how I decorate my house, make sure you head on over to my home channel, and here it is in that bowl that I created. I think this looks really nice, and like I said, perfect for my decor. Now moving on, we're going back to our house, and I have had this, was a DIY a while back that I created. It's just a small terracotta pot with a tray and a candle holder. Both came from Dollar Tree, both $3, and we're going to, for both, and we're going to be recreating this Santorini candlesticks that was $49. So I'm going to, this is very simple DIY. Again, just like the bowl, you can spray paint this if you want. I thought I had white spray paint, turns out I didn't, so I ended up using the same acrylic paint and painted the candle stick with that, 2 coats. But first I had glued it together. You can also use a E6000 or more permanent, like a Gorilla Glue, that instead of hot glue, if you wanted it to be more of a permanent or less of a chance of breaking it. I'm taking my chances, and I just used the hot glue primarily because my Gorilla Glue dried out. So again, I gave this candlestick two coats and you just want an even full coverage on it. You can spray it at this point or leave it as is. And here it is with a candle, and I think this turned out so nice and so close to the original, the inspirational piece. And for my next DIY, I picked up another $5 bunny from Dollarama, since you guys enjoyed my last bunny makeover. And my inspiration came from Pottery Barn's handcrafted terracotta bunny sculpture. Their versions are absolutely stunning, but also expensive. So I'm starting with a base coat of white acrylic paint. I found mine at Dollar Tree. I only did one coat because I wanted to let the natural texture of the bunny show through. This gave it a sculpted look. If your bunny doesn't have much texture, you can mix in cornstarch, sand, or even plaster of Paris into your paint to create that aged terracotta finish. Once the paint dried completely, I aged it using coffee grounds. I gently rubbed them into the bunny, focusing on the crevices to enhance all those beautiful details. To finish, I used a clean brush to blend and soften the effect. You can also use a dry cloth to wipe off excess coffee for a more subtle look. I love how this turned out. It looks so high-end and vintage. Let me know in the comments if you tried this technique. For my next project, I'm going to be making over these two vases. These actually belong to my mother-in-law, who has thrifted with the intention of getting me to make them over. I had finally gotten her to pick out what she wants to get done with them. So I'm going to give them a base coat just to have an even starting point. And I'm doing this the fastest way, which is spray painting it with this satin black spray paint. And here they are spray painted. That way I don't have any of those lines showing through. Then once inside and when completely dry, I mixed up some of that black acrylic paint with some flour just to get a lot thicker texture, because we are going to be trying to recreate this look from Pottery Barn. It is this Cortland vase from Cortland Vase Collection. As you can see, it has a little pattern on it, and she really liked that pattern on this vase. So I'm going to try and create that with some luck. And she couldn't remember exactly how much she had paid for her vases. She believes it was $15 for both, and as you can see, regular price these are range from $112 to $141, but on sale is $78 to $99. So quite a bit of savings for her, $15, and then a little bit of paint that I have used. So like I said, I'm going to mix the black paint with the flour, so that way I can create that design that she is looking for. So one of the reasons why I have decided to spray paint that as well was because once I'm going to be creating the design, which I will be doing it with a pencil, you can do it with a chopstick, or one of those skewer sticks, or any thin object that can give you nice thin lines. I just had a pen on hand, so I am using that. But that way, when you are doing the lines underneath, it's not showing the original color. It is going to be that black base color that I spray painted on. I was working in sections because I was worried that if I paint the whole thing all at once and go with a pen, that the first section would dry out on me. So here are the lines. I think that is looking pretty good. So I'm going to continue the same process for the rest of the vase, working in sections. So I am just finishing this here, and I will be doing the other one as well, the taller one, but I'm not going to bore you with the same process because it's exactly the same, but this way you can see how I did it for both of them. I think they turned out beautiful. Here they are all dried. She absolutely loved them. She loved the fact that they had so much character versus just a simple paint job. I paired them with some Timu branches, and I think they are going to be great on her fireplace for her fall decor, since I had inspired her to decorate her home for fall. The first project that I'm going to be creating, I have a tremendous savings here for you. I did pick up this vase for $5. But this is not the item that I'm going to be duping. Over on Pottery Barn, I had found this vase, this look actually, the vase with hydrangea bundle, and the hydrangea bundles here is $70. But I really love this whole look, and that's what I'm going to be recreating. So as you can see, my vase was a little bit taller and a little bit thinner, but I think I can achieve that same look. Now for the hydrangea flowers, I did get mine out of the garden, and if you let your hydrangeas dry in a vase, they will get that dusty green look to them a little bit, and they do last for quite a while just sitting in a vase with no water or anything like that. But I did look over on Amazon, as well as I've seen a couple of the one Timu had a few for a lot less than just than $70. I think the most expensive one was on Amazon Canada for about a 40, but you get a much larger bundle. So look around your garden. You might find the fall foliage that you like, and it looks really nice in your vase. So to get this vase painted, I am going to be, so as you saw, I mixed white and creamy color paint. This is chalk paint, so it's a lot thicker. I was going to add flour to it to make it even more thicker, but my cream colored old ochre chalk paint was pretty dry, so it was actually quite thick, as you can see. The reason why I mixed the two colors is because the old ochre was too yellowish, and the white was too bright. So I just wanted to kind of tone down the brightness of the white. So that's why I mixed them. And I am applying a fairly thick layer because I want that thickness to show in the vase. So I forgot to mention that I will leave the links to the Amazon hydrangeas that I found in the description box in case if you wanted to venture out and get some for yourself. Also Dollarama, if you're located in Canada, I've seen hydrangea flowers there as well. I've never seen them at Dollar Tree, but definitely at Dollarama. At Michael's store, I did not see that color, although I do know that my mother-in-law had gotten herself some hydrangeas like that a while back, so it's worth looking into it. I was just checking on the website. I think making over vases is one of the most affordable ways to add those look for less high-end dupes to your decor, because they tend to be a lot cheaper at thrift stores, and usually you can find the style of them like the high-end stores have them, and with a little bit of paint you can achieve that high-end look. So right now I am just trying to blend, so there's none of the brush strokes are showing, and I'm just using a crafter sponge to do that. Since I like to show you everything, I will show you this step as well, but I do find that this did not really add much to the vase. I wanted to just darken the certain spots just a little bit, but I didn't want to go too much with this brown because I feel like it has a bit of a purplish tinge to it. So I went really, really lightly just to dab on, but you can completely skip this step if you wanted to and just move on to the next step. And the next step is optional as well. If you want, you can just leave it at this point, or you can go and get some dirt and get dirty. My camera ran out of space, my card, so I had to resort to my phone. So here we are. So all I take is before the vase completely dries, I just add some dirt to it, sprinkle it. You want this to be, for this particular project, you want the dirt to be dry. I've done projects where the dirt is wet and then it just kind of paints everything, but then you can't sprinkle it on and the vase has to be dry. So I let this dry completely, and then once it's dried completely, I take a brush and I just brush the dirt off and kind of try and blend it in a little bit. And that's it. And now I went out to my garden and clipped some hydrangeas, added them to my vase, and here it is on my shelf. I think it turned out so nice, and I think it's a pretty close dupe for the one at Pottery Barn, and for a lot less.